What's up, guys? We have a question from the podcast that we're going to cover today, and it reads from Inspired Adventino. It isn't a question related to this pod, but why are cleans better than snatches for increasing vertical? Isn't the technique required to do snatches more explosive, or is it only faster? So that's what we're going to cover today. Before we do that, my name is John Evans. I coach many of the highest jumpers in the world, like Isaiah Rivera. He has a 50.5 inch vertical. My vertical is like 40.5 to 43, 40 to 43, who knows? Isaiah has actually inspired me recently to train incredibly hard on.
I do want to make a statement because I see a lot of people talking smack to Mr. John Evans that he doesn't have 40. I specifically asked him for the clips for the of his highest jump day ever, and that man was in the 40s.
Yeah,
sure.
I think I was in the 40s. It was really big jumps.
And basing how you jump, like when we say our vertical is based on our best day ever. I don't have a 50.5 inch vertical every
day. Yeah, I would say my cluster is probably in like the high 30s, and then I'll breach into the 40s on like good days. Really, really good days. But I'm definitely improved a lot over the last 6 months. So now I'm increasing the training a lot. And if you guys are interested in training, right now, if you buy 6 months, you get 6 months free on the website. So go check that out. It's in the link in the description.
And also pin comment if we remember.
We will remember. I will remember. So yeah, this real quick before we get into this. This is, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on this actually. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for another time, but you guys will see. But I'm training hard. So to answer this question, why are cleans better? So that's the first thing we need to approach is, are they better? Are they not better? And I think it comes down to the differences between them, which kind of comes back to the second question is, isn't the technique required to do snatches more explosive? So in terms of peak power, I actually, off the top of my head, I don't remember what the wattages are for Olympic weightlifters. So let me go look that up because there's a lot of research on.
We can pause it and come back with the research.
Yeah. So after some brief research, we've come to the conclusion that power snatch actually has higher wattages than power clean. And it makes sense when you think about it, because when you look at watts, it's going to be force times distance over time. So in a power clean, the bar is moving from the floor to your shoulders, and in a power snatch, the bar is moving from the floor overhead. So you're going to have more distance that you're moving the weight, so the wattages are going to be quite a bit higher. That said, how you get the wattages is different. So the bar speeds on a power clean are going to be slower, and so you're more on the strength speed side of the continuum, or the strength side. And then for a power snatch, you're on the speed strength side of the continuum. So they both create really high wattages, but different ways. If you want to think about it in terms of other activities, you can think about throwing maybe like a jump squat. Let's say you did a jump squat at 100% of your max versus 30% of your max, just for the sake of ease with the numbers. You can get really high wattages in both of those, but the 100%, if you try to do a jump squat with it, that's going to be creating, the force side is going to be a lot higher. But the time interval is going to be a lot longer. So, the denominator is a bigger number, and therefore your wattages are going to be lower, but you're compensating by putting more weight on the bar. And then if you're looking at, the lighter load, the time interval is going to be a lot shorter, but the force is going to be a lot lower. So you can benefit from each of these. And this is partially the reason why it's a good question, because it kind of alludes to why certain exercises aren't necessarily better or worse, but more so where they fit into a continuum. So I saw a post the other day about the force velocity curve, and the coach was saying like, oh, well, you shouldn't surf the force velocity curve. Like, it doesn't make sense because like leverages and biomechanics and internal forces and stuff. And the reality is that we account for that. So for example, if Isaiah does a really light drop squat, right? And that's going to be on the far left of a two-tailed force velocity curve, which actually I'm going to pull up because I think this is important to understand when you're looking at understanding long-term progressions, because the answer to this question won't make sense unless you are looking at a force velocity curve. So let me share my screen real quick here. So this is the force velocity curve. On the right here, we have a two-tailed example. So on the x-axis, you have velocity. On the y-axis, you have force. So what this basically says is when you are just looking at a muscle, like in and of itself, we're not talking with a tendon or anything like that, you're seeing really, really high forces when you go really, really fast eccentrically. So if you were to lengthen a muscle really fast, it's capable of producing a ton of force. The reason why is pretty complex and we don't even fully understand it, but this is just what we see in a lab. And then it's saying as you get slower in eccentric forces, so meaning, let's say Isaiah does a jump that's really high, fast eccentric forces when he touches down. And then, as you get to isometric conditions, you're actually considerably weaker, or the muscle can't produce as much force. And then on the far right, we have very fast concentric contractions. So this is, again, like doing a barbell squat jump or something like that. You're not good at producing a ton of force. Now, the caveat to this is not in elastic conditions. So meaning, or in collisions. So this is not, it's not your foot striking the ground. And this is what I've talked about previously, and it's a little bit complex, but this is a good framework for the weight room because we're not dealing with fast enough conditions to start to see the tendon lengthen while the muscle is isometrically contracted, which is really important to understand. And so when we're looking at something like a power snatch and a power clean, you're able to use that curve really effectively. Squats, you're able to use it effectively. RDLs, calf raises, et cetera. In the weight room, you can move across that progression. And so earlier in the year, you want to do things that are lower force. So you're going to want to do a lot of high volume squatting at I'd probably start in the middle of the curve. I wouldn't necessarily be on the far right of the curve. Like I wouldn't put pin squats with a bar, or something like that, because it's just you're not really going to get much adaptation from that. There's a time and place for it, but you would need really light loads. We're talking like minuscule loads, not even body weight, maybe. So as you move up that curve towards the center, you essentially want to serve from right to left. So you'd start the year on the right side of the curve, and then as you go through the year, you want to move towards the left side of the curve and getting faster and faster. And then once you get to the far left of the curve, that's when you can start to do more elastic collisions, and some other things have to change as a result. So when you're doing power snatch, you're doing something that's to kind of like the perfect sweet spot on that curve, because you're getting really high forces, you're getting really high bar speeds, and you're getting really high wattage as a result. So it can be really good. And I do think it is a great lift, and I do program them. The problem is that they're way harder to learn. So if for example, Dom and I did a bodyweight circuit today and I had him do overhead squats, he is horrible at overhead squats. The mobility required to do it is extensive.
He's not an athlete then.
He's just not really an athlete. Yeah. Isaiah, can you even do an overhead squat? Let's tell the story about that, actually.
That was on YouTube. One of the comments said, I'm a great jumper, but something along the lines of I'm not a true athlete because I can't do an overhead squat, and then I'm not a good I'm not better than average basketball player.
Which I think is insane, because I think you're very good at basketball.
I'm probably a 99th percentile or a top 1 percentile of all the people that play basketball on the planet. I think I could beat 99% of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like Dom's a good basketball player, and
I can overhead squat.
And you can overhead squat. Yeah. So I want to ask you this: you've maxed both of these lifts. Which one do you technically feel more comfortable with? Obviously.
Oh, snatch 100. No, I'm just playing. Definitely a clean.
Yeah, and so
snatch.
I think if you did it more, you'd be better. But your shoulder mobility is not. I wouldn't feel comfortable loading it as frequently, because I think it would cause shoulder issues for you.
Yeah.
Like your overhead position isn't bad.
They feel comfortable. Like I don't feel. It doesn't feel foreign when I do a snatch. But I'm definitely not as proficient at them.
Yeah,
like technically speaking.
And oftentimes when I program them, I put them around 50 to 70% of an athlete's power clean. So for you, that's going to be 50% is going to be like 175 or something like that, 165, and you can move it really, really fast. So it doesn't really take that much mobility. Oftentimes it's, again, you're more on the velocity side of that continuum. So it is, in a sense, more specific to jumping, right? Jumping is like very, very fast. So you definitely, there's a lot of benefits to each of them. And it does get into kind of the question of, when you look at specificity, again, like I've talked about this, in elastic collisions, we see different things happen in the muscle. So essentially, the muscle can contract isometrically or concentrically, meaning it's staying the same length, but the musculotendinous unit is actually lengthening and shortening. So if the muscle's staying the same and the musculotendinous unit is the muscle and the tendon is what's actually stretching and shortening. But we don't see this across the entire contraction. So it's still really like the entire ground contact time. In a jump, you're going to have the muscles lengthen at some point. The tendon can only stretch, I think the Achilles can only stretch like, it's like 6 centimeters or 6% of its total length. Like, it's not a lot. I think the patella deforms even less than that, but it's significantly stiffer. So you do see that happen, but in a 2-foot jump, I mean, you're angulating a lot, like a lot. And I think that's partially why, a lot of this stuff is so effective. But if you're looking at sprint training, it's part of the reason why the weight room ends up being a lot less applicable. You can get structural adaptations, and maybe there's some like changes to the fascicle and stuff that you can benefit from, but you're probably not going to just get faster past a certain point because you're lifting more weight. It's sometimes you might actually do the opposite. And I've seen that happen at Duke, not Duke necessarily, they did a good job, but I've seen it happen in track groups before, where they just do too much weight room work and then they're flat all the time. And then their coordination's kind of messed up. Whereas jumping is much slower in comparison. And so guys will, even 1-foot jumping is significantly slower. So they'll end up, being able to improve a lot more, because you need massive, intramuscular forces compared to sprinting. The forces are high in sprinting, but they're not as high as jumping. Jumping's way higher. So that's the difference. I like both of them. I think they're both really good. I do program power snatch, but if someone's not proficient, I don't like to put it in the program, because most people don't have the shoulder mobility. We get a lot of guys that are athletes.
I actually think like if you're on THP, you can get pretty good at them just with the barbell warm up. Like, because the barbell warm up it's like 2 rounds of 5 overhead squatting and hang power snatch. So you're essentially getting, if you do that 3 times a week, about 30 reps a week, where you can practice the motion. And like doing that, because I think we don't see power snatch until probably like 6 months in. It's probably the first time we program it in.
Maybe later. It really depends. Like,
yeah.
There might be some cycles early on. I'd have to go through and like look what specifically has it in.
But at that point, like, you should have done so many reps in the warm up that you should be able to handle, 50 to 60% of.
And even then, the bar is like, so yeah, exactly what you just said. It's 50% of your power clean. Like, if you're power cleaning 155, that's 75 pounds. It's like not gonna be, or 80, I guess. But it's really not gonna be hard to do that. So,
but like many things, the answer is to tool in the tool belt, baby.
Isaiah's new adage. This is Isaiah gets on these, little like kind of business adages, and then they apply to life. So that's what right now.
I mean, it's true.
It is true. It is true. And I think that goes for any of the stimuli. It's like the podcast we were talking about the other day, where it was like, is hex bar jump better than power clean? It's like, no, it's just another tool that you can use at the right time.
You know what the answer to every,
it depends.
Like, if we had a battle, it was like front squat or back squat. Yes. Power snatch or power clean. Yes. Like sprinting or like hill sprints or long sprints. Yes.
Yeah. All of them. There's just different times and different amounts. I would say maybe a better question is, how much do you do power clean versus power snatch? That's maybe like a more fair question. I would say,
or
I do power clean 80% of the time.
During a cycle where X is the focus, which exercise Y do you pick?
Exactly. So if I'm in a max strength cycle, I'm going to clean pull and power clean. If I'm in a max power cycle, I'm probably going to use
hang clean.
If they're like, you could use hang power clean, you could use hang power snatch. Any of those are good. If I'm in like an elastic cycle, I'm going to go drop hang power snatch or drop split clean, or you could even do
drop squats light.
Say that. What's that?
Like drop squat light.
Yeah, like drop squats. Have I done those with you in a while?
Nah, but I see you do them.
Yeah, I do them. What's funny is there was a comment the other day that was like, oh, this is like a master class in sports science. Like on one
It
end
was
of
on
the
my
camera.
lift. It was
Yeah, it was like,
the second, I think it was 2 lift videos ago that I
I think it was
posted.
Christian Bickle that said
Yeah.
it. And he was like, on one side of the continuum, you have Isaiah doing incredibly general work, high volume. And on the other side, you have John doing like the most specific side of the continuum. And I had DM'd him because he was like, I don't remember what his question was, but he's like, why are you so specific right now? And I was like, well, my training age is 20 years. So as you get further on in your development, you need to do more specific stuff, which is you still do general stuff. Like what I'm doing right now with Dom is really general, and it's probably going to pay huge dividends because the big picture, my work capacity is going to go up. My overall capacity is going to go up. So even if I'm getting really good at the specific stuff, just having a higher level of fitness by doing it's still specific. It's just not as specific, and more of well-timed general work is better than not doing more work. I think more work is generally better if it's the right stuff, if they can handle it. So for example, sprinting is better than not sprinting. Like doing general work and bodybuilding circuits better than not doing bodybuilding circuits and general work. Like if you're going to just cut your volume in half, well, you're seeing way less stimuli that you can adapt to a point. And then obviously when you drop all that stuff off, that's when you get really specific and your vertical climbs up. So yeah, that's the podcast, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Click the link in the description if you want 6 free months of training when you sign up for 6 months of coaching. We'll see you guys next time. Ciao.